this week's episode, I am talking to the crew of Ghost Encounters. Hello, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Here you are. Right, so we have Justin, we have Jordan, we have Hannah.
Yes.
So you have a podcast and a YouTube show. Am I right in thinking it's on some sort of USA cable TV or something? Where is it shown?
The show is mainly on YouTube. I've done many appearances on local news and stuff like that in our area. And the podcast is everywhere anyone can listen to podcasts.
But we're based out in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, so like Bethlehem, PA. Kind of.
Now, I have to say that I listen to a lot of podcasts. Yours was one of the best produced, both podcasts and shows, I would say. So well done.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That has to do with Hannah and I went to the same college. We went to college for video production and photography, so we have a lot of that experience. I also own two marketing and production companies out here in Pennsylvania. So, we have that skill set, which, helps us with the YouTube and the podcast.
And Justin's a great editor. He does really, really well. It's his passion project, so he's always like going that little extra mile to make it super cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, well, I aspire to put the effort in to be better now I've watched yours. So, where do we start? What inspired you, I guess? What started the team, etc.?
Well,
the guy.
Well, back in my first semester of college in 2010, I've always been obsessed with the paranormal, always, my entire life. Not sure why. Jordan and I, we've known each other since before high school, and we've always watched, shows like Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and things like that almost every day.
Yeah.
But I decided when I was in college to put my two passions together, video production and the paranormal. And I was like, I had an idea of a name, an idea for a show, of my own paranormal show. And the first episode I ever did ended up winning first place at the Pocono Mountain Film Festival. It's a medium-sized film festival in our area, and that kind of was the rockets on the idea ship to just boost that along. And I did a couple more episodes in college. It actually aired on campus TV and things like that. Once I graduated, I took a little break from it and focused on my main career and opening up the businesses that I now own. And then in 2018, I was finally at a place where I could step back a little bit and I had more time in my hands. I was like, why don't we revamp this show and make it something really great? And that's when, the whole new logo design and website came in. And I knew Hannah from college, so I was like, Hannah, you got to come on with me. And Jordan, she's always been a passionate paranormal person too. So I was like, you know what? Let's team up. Let's do the podcast. Let's do some more investigation episodes.
Yeah, I'm a bit late to the game, but I'm out. Like personally, I'm a little bit death obsessed. I like to know about the. I like to imagine about what might be going on in the hereafter. So
Jordan was on a couple episodes in the college years.
Yeah.
And she's had some pretty wild experiences. She's, I would say ghosts like to physically touch her for some reason.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, they did in the episode I watched, yes. Yeah. So, well, let's start and go around. The Wooden Match is the recent episode to date. So, locations, how do you feel? Because it was like, it's a cigar place, isn't it? And it used to be a railroad and it's got a bar. How do you go back when you've got spirits from different times? How do you go about approaching them and understanding what's going on?
With every investigation that we do, we always try to approach it in a very similar way. Most places around us are known to be haunted. Our area does a great thing where instead of just demolishing old places, we actually renovate them. And so our area really, reserve that history, which I think kind of, enhances that paranormal activity. And the process is always the same. If it's a place I want to go into, maybe it's some people have contacted me because they wanted me to do an episode of Ghost Encounters at their location because it helps the business out. But the first thing I always do is research. I want to know what happened back in the day, who was there, why were they there, who died there, were there any accidents, what makes it paranormal. Sometimes there is no definite answer, and sometimes there is, in the case of like the Wooden Match, where there was a train accident directly outside the building and 12 people died. There's also a story that a little boy died down in the basement back when there was an old coal stove down there and he burned to death, which is one that we think touched Jordan's leg. But that is the first step. I want to know, because that allows us to know what questions to ask, right? Instead of just asking basic questions all night, we then can ask about either specific names or events or try to get some kind of emotion arise from the spirits that are there to get some kind of reaction or answer. And then, interviews with staff or whoever, if it's a house, whoever lives there. I want to know what kind of paranormal experiences they've had, which rooms are more prone to paranormal activity, which room has voices, which rooms do the lights, flicker. That way we can kind of determine, all right, where are we going to set up the X cameras? Where are we going to set up the motion sensor cameras? And we kind of lay that all out in our heads. And then, always do a base reading to see if there's any weird spots where there might be electromagnetic energy, because there could be a fuse box somewhere nearby or a clump of wires somewhere. So that can just get debunked immediately. And then after that, we kind of have all the information we need, and you get right into it.
Do you do baseline readings then? Do you go around with your K2s before?
Yeah.
I think that's really essential, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I find that really strange because you never know what could be in a certain spot. Because when you're doing an investigation in pitch black, you can't see too well what's in front of you, right? So if you're standing next to a fuse box or a clump of wires or whatever it may be, you might not know it in the pitch black. So I want to know where things are, what may be.
Yeah.
Even during those times, sometimes we get paranormal activity. When I was doing the interview with the guy at the Wooden Match, I was setting everything up, and they have TVs upstairs in their lounge, and they were off. And then we're just standing there waiting for the guy to come up for the interview, and all of a sudden the TVs just start blasting on the music station, and we're like, "What? Like, when did that happen? Like we weren't touching the remotes; they were off."
I think there's also something to be said about possible like EMF leaking and unexpected like hot spots and cold spots and magnetic activity in older buildings as well, which may have been redone a number of times, and you're not always sure what the contractor's done or what the electrician's done with the wiring. So things could be old, or things could be new, or things could be like held together with staples and rubber bands. Like you never know. You never know. So it's super important to get a base.
There's a episode at the Sun Inn, which was one of the oldest bed and breakfasts in our area, where like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin have stayed at, and they have electric candles in all the windows, and there's a bunch. It's surrounded by windows. They're all on timers. They'll go on at the same time, off the same time. And to have that information helps, because during that investigation, we were in a room that had some activity, and the spirits were kind of leading us out the room and kind of like they were giving us a tour of the place. It was really nice. But when we came back in, one of the rooms, just one of the candles were off, because I had one window. Just one of the candles were off, and the bed was messed up. And it's kind of, how can you deny that when they're all on the same timer? They're all connected. Like, how does just one do that? So to have that information too about how things work throughout the building really helps.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that your research could contaminate your interpretation of EVPs and things?
It could, but I'm actually convinced that because of the research we do, we can then determine what the EVPs actually are and mean. Like if a name comes through that is a name of someone, to me that's more compelling than not knowing that information. There's an episode I did. I investigated a really old house in Palmerton, Pennsylvania that has it's shrouded in mystery, and it's a very bizarre place. It's up on this mountain. We're surrounded by just dead rock. And
is that the one?
The Marshall Hill Mansion.
Yeah, with the missing skull.
The guy who lived there was Elijah, and a name that came through in the spirit box was Elijah. And to me, to have that connection is a lot better than not having it.
Being in real estate that location was absolutely amazing on that hill, and you were able to just go and investigate it. How cool!
Yeah. Well, one of my businesses that I own is a real estate marketing and production company, and so I knew the realtor who was listing that house, and she was the reason I was kind of able to get in there. And I just love that place. I love the drone shots of that place because you can see like the whole area and everything.
That was so cool.
Hannah and I are both licensed FAA Part 107 pilots, so we are doing everything legit and all that.
Yeah.
We do love drone flying.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Really cool shots then, both of you. Yeah, the drone shots really make it stand apart from other shows. So Hannah, what do you think about female investigators versus males? Do you think that the female compassionate side gets more different spirits to come through or anything like that?
I think that's kind of it's a complicated question and a complicated answer, because I think that a lot of it has to deal with perception. both from the standpoint of how we as like living people perceive each other, and how I guess a ghost who would have been formerly a living person would perceive a man versus a woman. You know, like I don't think that a woman is inherently going to be more compassionate than a man, but I think that if another person or the spirit of a person is primed to see a woman is more compassionate, then maybe that spirit would be more willing to open up and interact with a woman than a man.
I think Jordan has a good story to add to that. That would be the Weaversville Inn episode.
There was when we were at the Weaversville Inn, we were down in the basement. We were doing a spirit box session, and I was down there by myself with you and Brandon, and we were doing the spirit box session, and basically a spirit came through the spirit box and said, "Leave her," because it used to be a brothel down in the basement, and I was the only female there, basically telling them, "Hey, get the hell out of here. We just want her to be down here."
Yeah, and about half hour before that, your hair, huge chunk of her hair was kind of like lifted up, just like that,
like hanging there,
and just bizarre. So I think in that kind of situation, it helped to have a female investigator there, because that's a place that used to be a brothel, and unfortunately, awful things happen down there.
The ghosts are also more likely to like treat you icky.
Yeah. That was the first place I ever captured moaning in an EVP.
Yeah.
As strange as that is, that was pretty wild.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Have you ever had anything really cool happen that you were like, oh man, I didn't record it? You miss it?
I don't think we've missed anything.
I don't know.
I am like constantly afraid we're gonna miss something though.
Yeah.
I think
as the person who's got the little camera around, I'm just like, okay.
It's always nerve-wracking to make sure like you don't miss anything. I think the thing that we almost missed was actually on the Weaversville episode. This was one back in college, and there was a moment where the bottom basement door, so there's a door that goes down the basement, there's like a laundry area, another door that opens up to the rest of the basement. On that basement door, there was this huge bang, and it wasn't like a knock like, hey, I'm here. It was like a bang, get the F out of here right now. And the group was a little rattled at that point. Jordan's hair, that's terrified. Just after Jordan's hair was being lifted up. And so we stopped the cameras, but my audio recorder was still going. And as we're walking out, I always say that those are Class A EVPs because you can hear two distinct female voices.
And you're lucky that you had it on. And
I know, because we were asking, who's down here? Is anyone down here? Who's doing that? And one female voice came on and said, we're all in here. And the other one said, I know, and he doesn't even know who. And it kind of starts like fading and trailing out. That was wild.
Yeah.
It just clear as day, like crystal clear, like they were standing right next to us.
That's awesome. Jordan, do you feel that you genuinely do have some sort of more energy maybe that they're interested in? What's the draw?
My whole life, I feel like I've always been sort of sensitive to, I don't want to say that I'm like an empath, but I've been really sensitive to certain kinds of like energies and stuff like that. So when I go into a room, normally I can tell if something if it's a good vibe or if it's a bad vibe and everything like that. So yeah, I guess I could kind of feel energies if you want to say it that way, but I feel very drawn to the paranormal. So when I go into an investigation, usually I'm the one that's kind of the target. And I don't like to call it a target, but at least I get some sort of kickback when we go to certain locations.
Yeah, they mess around with you.
I know.
Like more so than they mess around with me too. I'm like, I always tell people I'm like the anti-psychic, not because I'm anti-psychic, like I've been because Justin and I both work in real estate, and I do a lot of home tours. I do a lot of real estate photography, and I've been in maybe 3,000 homes all around the Lehigh Valley. And you would expect, like I'm alone in a lot of those homes, and you would maybe expect something to have happened to me, like ghost wise. Nothing, not a thing. Even the ones where like I've had an agent be like, don't go in the basement alone. I'm very scared of the basement alone. And I'm just like, well, I guess I'm going in the basement. Like,
Yeah.
what's down there? I want to know. And it's nothing.
Yeah, well, on the wooden match episode, the one where I heard like kind of like a hissy breath, Justin actually at that point thought it was a car, and I heard it like it was right in my ear, and I was like, "Hey, was that one of you guys?" Right away.
Oh, we captured it on audio.
Yeah.
You heard it immediately.
Yeah,
That was very
and they were
cool.
right next to me. They were really close to me, but they didn't catch it. So like, yeah.
Now, because they mentioned pool cues hitting the floor and even repeating and being like exactly the same as the first time, the same pattern. Now, I've witnessed spiritual, well, paranormal audio because I've seen footsteps up a stairs and there's no one there. But it's like it's replayed rather than there and then. It's almost like a long time echo, if you like.
Right,
Do you have
more
any
of a
theories about, like a replay? Do you have your own thoughts or experiences?
Yeah, I mean, we've been a bunch of places. I feel like never a place is ever either just residual or just intelligent. Every place we've been to, we've found a little bit of both, for whatever the reason may be. Perhaps the spirits have enough energy and are so aware because they've been spirits for so long that they know what's going on, or perhaps the event that happened there was so traumatic it's just imprinted on history and just keeps repeating. I don't have any answers on how or why. But I feel like every place we've been into, we've had a mix of both, and it's never just one or the other.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever witnessed a residual haunting. Every single spirit, because we use Ouija boards, we directly talk to them and say, "Was that you saw?" Say, "Yeah, it was," and But you don't seem to use Ouija boards. Any reason why?
I would say just because we don't want to open that portal between the other side, just in case something negative does come through. I would use one myself. I don't care. My first instinct is I want them to be okay.
I wouldn't use
And there's a stigma against keyboard. If people are touching it, they're gonna say, "Oh, they're just moving it." So
yeah,
I tended not to use that as part of my evidence because someone could just easily say you're touching it versus why would a K2 meter spike all the way peak in the middle of a room after asking a question for no apparent reason. So I just found that from a visual perspective, there'd be a lot more kickback for using a Ouija board.
I think no matter what you use, Justin, you're going to get kickback.
I was on the news quite a bit in October. There's a lot of local articles and stuff done on me, and I had a lot of hate. It's going to happen. It is what it is. It's just not something we've brought into our tool set yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I did play around with a Ouija board once, and I'm totally open to doing it again, for better or worse, But the two girls that I was with when we were playing with the Ouija board, I did not find them to be particularly honest. It was like, "Oh, we're going to contact the spirit of Marilyn Monroe," and I was like, "Okay, good luck. We're gonna,
I'm not against them. I just don't. I'm too nervous. Let me just say that. I guess I'm scared to see if there would be any kickback from using one. That's
even in a more of a negative energy
like I wouldn't want
level
something coming home with me or something like that. I mean, I know that I put myself at risk while doing investigations that something could come home with me anyway, but I don't know, Ouija boards kind of scare me too much to use it. I don't know.
I was gonna say, like, what's a ghost gonna do in my apartment? It's gonna knock over my coffee. I don't know. It's upset my dog. I don't know. It could always be worse than I ever imagined it to be. So it's maybe it's why. How are your experiences with a Ouija board? Do you get a lot of good stuff that way?
Yes. Yeah. 13 years of using one, and I would say never anything bad. And that's because if anything sinister comes through, and by sinister, all I really mean is swearing and saying, "We're here to hurt you." But when you sit there and say, "Okay, if you think you've got the energy, go for it," and nothing's going to happen. It's all nonsense. And then when you push them, it's just a teenager. It's just like some spirit going, "Oh, sorry, I'm trying to scare you."
Yeah, man. Like you couldn't put my hair at the wooden match, so you're not gonna what are you gonna do in my apartment?
Right.
I'm in your house now,
Yeah.
I was watching some of your videos and I've seen different style Ouija boards and such. What do you find is the preferred style in your case?
Normal bought Ouija boards, all the letters are far too crammed together. and they don't have new spirit like I drew on mine, because we found, how do you know when spirit 12, 13, 14's coming on? You need them to learn to go to new spirit so that you can start a new page of communication. You know, things like that, for example. Just putting hello on the board helped me out. You know that it's a nice person if they go to hello first. You
That's
know?
awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in the UK, I mean, there's a plethora of history and haunted places. What has been your favorite place so far?
It's in York. York is a medieval city, and it's supposedly, and now this sounds too good to be true, it's supposedly the oldest building in York I found upon research, which I didn't know at the time. And yes, that's where we came through with what you would say was the worst spirit, who is now our friend and looks over us, which is a stupid journey of about 3 years. But at first, investigating its house, we'd never had activity. You know, you walk into a place, any location, and you hope for the best, but you normally get dribs and drabs, and you're not fully sure. We were fully sure in that first place. As things were moving, a guitar was strumming on the wall. You know, it was like we suddenly felt like we are out of our depth. We were just playing, and we didn't really know how to handle it. And
Right.
so that was the first investigation that we went, you know what, we're not going to sleep here a second night. We're a bit out of our depth. And then a few weeks later, we went to a local graveyard to ask any other spirit, hey, how do we protect ourselves against... And he came through straight away. Well, I found you. Here you are. And I'm like, wait, we're miles from your place. You know?
Yes.
But
That's
every time we opened a Ouija board, this character came through and said, oh, I found you. And eventually I calmed, and I was always like, look, I really respect you. You've done such great activity, and I'm sorry we were trying to ask about how to deal with you. And on our second visit to his house, we had accrued some attachments by trying silly things, and he actually supposedly cleansed us of them. And it's a longer story than that, but that is the gist of it. I feel much more comfort now knowing that he's watching over us.
wow.
Yeah, it's
that's
nice.
Awesome.
It's nice to have a kind of sidekick on the other side
Yeah.
to help you out. That's awesome.
Yeah. Right. K2s, dictaphones, cat balls even. You put those cat balls on the pool table. Excellent idea. So K2s, have you ever tried... Because I noticed you have at least 2, I think.
Yeah, we have 3 in our arsenal so far.
3. If you have 3, have you tried putting them in a triangular formation around the room to see if you can triangulate where the spirit is?
We have not tried that, but that is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Usually we catch ourselves kind of having like a cat
It's like
and
a
mouse
little
kind of
wander.
like a cat and mouse kind of
wandering.
chase. All right, where'd you go? Because you were right here 2 seconds ago. You know, we find ourselves doing that. But I think that's a very good idea, and I think maybe we'll try to
Maybe
do
we
that
could do that at
in
Sleepy
the
Cat.
next
Yeah.
episode.
That'll
Yeah.
be fun. Track the cat around.
Yeah,
the room.
there's all sorts of like motion sensors, isn't there? I think if you have 2 or 3, at least 3, you get, if 2 flash and 1 doesn't, you're like, okay, you're over there. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And along the lines of the motion detectors, you have that thing that like projects all the dots, the dot projection
Oh,
thing, right?
yeah.
We've used that a couple of times.
Use that a couple of times.
Mm.
There's an episode. Our local amusement park was built on very, very old lands. There used to be houses and hotels and taverns and all kinds of stuff. And we had some weird energy coming through that grid projection, that laser grid projection. Right after that, stapler on the table moved by itself. Very strange. Wasn't like a thing that was like, oh my God, stuff was thrown at us. It was just like, here's some energy coming through, and then stapler kind of moves on the table right next to it. It was very odd.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that could always be residual as well. It might not necessarily be like intelligent or residual of intelligence, but like, I don't know, echoing energy that's echoed back through years.
Sure,
you know?
sure. And we have motion sensor camera to capture things. That's how we captured the eyes.
Yes, that's the next thing on the list. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's literally looking down at the bar, was it, or somewhere, and then you see the little flashes. You call them eyes, but it was definitely something.
Yeah, to us it just looked like eyes, but it was in the basement where there's no windows. It's underground. That's where the kitchen is for the restaurant. And I was just, they said they always see a lot of stuff moving or stuff in there. So I decided, it was too noisy in there to investigate because they had all kinds of the refrigerators, all kinds of stuff running.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to hear a thing. So I was like, I'm just putting the sensor camera in here. And yeah, it was very strange. It captured 2 pictures, and 2 of them were completely blown out, as if like something's right in front of it.
They were,
And then it was, I think, I've seen weird stuff for doing this for as long as I have. And they are infrared, but I think perhaps because the infrared was shooting towards reflective glass, that perhaps that's why it caught something in a strange, mirror effect kind of way, that it was actually able to look into the other side and see kind of someone peering and looking around.
And either way, it wasn't something that we were able to duplicate.
Yeah,
afterward.
not at all. We looked, we tried, and just there's no windows down there. There's nothing that makes 2 lights perfectly next to each other to move around, and so yeah, couldn't replicate.
It's very cool.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite things that we've ever got.
Yeah.
It's seldom that we get something so visual,
Yeah.
and I think that's impactful on film.
Yeah.
Another visual thing you mentioned an orb, and that always raises a red flag for me. But do you believe in orbs?
To an extent, being who we are and going to school for photography and video production, we've seen our fair share of lens flares and dust and rain and water spots and
crap on the lens.
We've seen our fair share. So the only time I ever would mention an orb is if something was there that didn't move correctly, was kind of odd or oddly colored, something that I, as a professional in my field, could not say is something natural.
When you're reviewing CCTV footage for hours and hours, you soon learn to ignore most of it.
Yeah.
So the spirit box, is that the SB7? Do you know?
It is.
What speed do you run yours on? It sounded like 350, 300, or do you not know?
Top speed. How
350. Yeah.
50, yeah. Top speed and backwards.
Yeah, you did do it backwards. Yes. But backwards for any reason?
Just to make sure that when it gets to the spots where like most of the local stations are, we're not capturing. I want to be able to say it that 100% if it's coming out as a clear word wasn't, the radio station coming through even for a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah. It's your SB7 evidence is much greater than mine. I've had no luck with the damn thing. I only get radio stations, but even I was like, hang on, that sounds really good. Tug on Jordan's pants, and then that was me, and you got twice. It's like they really do seem relevant to what's happening.
Yeah, we've had a lot of luck with the SB7 Spirit Box. It's definitely taken a while to train your ears to actually pick something up. Jordan's always been great at that. Like, did it just say this? And I'm like, when we first started using it, over 10 years ago, I was like, I don't know. But now I can actually kind of pick it up quick because it is very quick. But you can, if you're paying attention, you can hear those words come through.
You're really good with it too, because at a certain point, you're just like, okay, we're done with the spirit box because we don't want to start thinking we hear things. And then it's like short bursts of spirit
start
box.
to mess with you a little bit because the static noise. But what people don't realize is that like if I show a 5-minute session of the spirit box, it was really happening for 15 minutes, and I just showed what actually came through versus 10 minutes of silence. Or
do you think you need to scan the spirit box? Why, if it's white noise, why don't you just not bother scanning it and leave it on one white noise channel?
That's a good idea too.
That's a good idea too. I just, from what I've seen and learned, I've always learned to just hit the scan button and let it run through. Not sure, but it's something I'm definitely willing to try, and just leave it on one static station where I know nothing's going to come through. I'll pick a station and make sure, at home it's just static and nothing's coming through for a while, and we can use that one and, see how it goes.
Yeah.
That's where the old style of it came through. But of course, we learned to scan the radio stations because then we can convince ourselves that some of the radio stations are evidence. But I'm not accusing you of that, because I listen to yours and go, damn, they're good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Definitely, like when it gets to the local stations and stuff, you can hear blips of music and things like that. And I don't think I've ever really captured anything during that time, but it's usually during the quieter times. But I would love to try the method of just keeping on one static station and letting it run.
You even got a good buy on it. I was like, oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was very polite. We didn't encounter anything really malevolent or nasty there. It was all very polite because in my knowledge, the people that did die there were just regular people, passengers on a train. They have no reason to be, bad or malicious.
Have you ever tried table tipping?
Table tipping. Explain table tipping.
We don't even know what that is.
No,
Don't
we've
even know
never.
what it is.
That's
I've
very
got
like
one next to me.
old school. That's like very Fox Sisters kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
it's no technology. It's just this.
Oh.
Get a
Okay,
table,
so
place your fingers on it, only your fingers, and ask for it to rock. And literally, it will swing about and jump off the floor if you get a good one.
What?
that's really awesome.
That's like another thing that I've heard of being like with the really turn of the century psychics and stuff. Like a lot of people, I think, have been had by table tipping. So
Yes, but
it's another
I'm
one
talking
that
about you and your team. You'll trust your team, don't you?
But it's another thing that's kind of like stigmatized, like a little bit like a Ouija board, where it's like, oh, people are going to start thinking that we're shisty if we're messing around with table.
But if you can show the whole table itself, you can see there, our feet are not lifting up or anything like that. So
there's like obviously if there's
two cameras, you film your fingers on the top and put the camera on the floor so everyone can see what they need to see. But even your EVPs, you could argue, sound like they're put on after, so it's just as easy to debunk that. Why care what people are going to say? Do what you want to experience,
Yeah. I always tell people we're here to present the evidence that we capture. If you want to believe, you believe. If you don't believe, I'm not here to say you have to believe. We're just this is what we love to do.
I'm interested in the table.
I am interested.
I want to do the table.
You guys want to play with a Ouija board so bad. I want to play with a Ouija board so bad.
So the lights flickered in the toilet, as you say, and then you got an EVP saying "ha ha," and that was like there was reports of lights flickering and electrics going weird, but then it did seem to. You got multiple evidence several times that, for me, is what you're after. You want two things, like a Ouija board and a voice app saying a word, and I've had one spell out Jennifer on the Ouija board as it says Jennifer on a device that I can't influence.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you two pieces of evidence at roughly the same time, it really is a lot more compelling.
Yeah. And you mentioned the train crash and the K2 spiked to red. That's something I've seen a pattern on. When spirits get emotionally triggered, the energy is red on meters and spikes. Emotional responses like kids, ask them about the kids, or love and anger. And when you were talking about train crash, it just lit up.
Yeah, that was all these two. They were upstairs alone. And was it you that asked?
Yeah.
Did you die in the train crash? And it spiked, it peaked, and I didn't even know that happened until they told me. And then when I was reviewing all the footage, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Good job, girls. Like that.
I was emotionally drained at that point. I was like burnt out at the end of that investigation. So getting that as like our little like nightcap was nice.
Yeah, that was cool. I was ready for it. I'm always I want something to like I don't want to say yes, follow me home, because that's playing with fire, and I don't want to play with fire necessarily, and I don't want to taunt anything, and I don't want to upset anyone, But that said, sometimes I want something to really, really scare me. I want something to keep me up at night, and I want to know. I want to, like, everybody else aside, I want to know for me deep down that, like, I saw something today. I have clipped the other side, and now I know, and it'll stay. I won't forget about it in 20 minutes the next time I get angry. Like.
Yeah. Do any of you do protection then, or wear crystals or anything?
I do wear a crystal. I wear a black obsidian to repel the negative energy. Whether it works or not, I have no idea. I'm not a huge crystal person.
Yeah.
But just a simple hey, spirits, stay here. This is your place. You don't want to come in with me.
Hannah, it sounds like the Ouija board is perfect for you.
Yeah, it does.
I'm ready. Halloween episode. Let's do it. Live stream Ouija. Hannah gets haunted for these.
Funny you should say that, because I've always wanted to try and pass a spirit from one Ouija board to another Ouija board and see if that spirit can jump from one to the other. And doing it across the ocean would be an interesting experiment, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like I've never heard of anybody doing that before.
Yeah.
Either.
Well,
that would be incredible.
Yeah, we've had like spirits say, "I know where you live," and we're like, "Okay, well, what's our house number then?" And we don't know each other's house numbers, It's just not something we know. and it goes around the table. The glass points to a person and then gives their number, and everyone's going, yeah. So yeah, I just think it's good. I like experiments. I like trying things out. You know?
Same. I like trying new things and different experiments and new equipment, but I would love to try to, bounce a spirit back and forth between 2 Ouija boards across the ocean. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? Do you think there are certain places that are more conducive to activity, and for what reason?
I would say yes. I would say places where someone has died or a tragedy has occurred. I would say that negative energy and that thing that has really impacted their living life or impacted history is kind of what either keeps them here or keeps that record playing, of the past.
Like we on the podcast, we recently had an expert on talking about Gettysburg, which I guess if you have people who don't know anything about Gettysburg, it's kind of something that looms pretty large in American culture. Gettysburg, the battlefields out there, it's a Civil War battlefield where a lot of people died. A lot of people were killed very young in Gettysburg. And that's considered by a lot of people to be one of the most haunted places in the United States.
I don't think there's a building there that isn't reportedly haunted just because the amount of deaths that were all over that city. And
there may also be something to be said about places with like limestone deposits or running water or there are things said about that kind of sort of deal as well. So maybe.
What do you think?
Well, I noticed that most people think graveyards are like, really bad. They're so quiet. You might get the odd person. And I have no real, I don't know what I think. I don't know if death does matter, because it seems to me like they come and go as they please to visit family and friends. And so it's more like fishing in a pond. You can go fishing in a place once, and if you don't catch a fish, does that mean there's never spirits there or fish there? No, it's just the chance thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
I really like that.
That is a really good analogy.
I'm not always at home, so if the postman finds me out, does that mean I don't ever live here? No.
Right.
So what about Estes method? Have you ever tried that?
We have not tried it yet. I've seen it used in a lot of recent paranormal shows like Project Fear and places like that. We're we've been buying some more equipment, and we're going to be utilizing some new methods and things on our upcoming episodes. So we're going to be trying that out along with some other things. And we're just we're like you said, we're just like yourself. We're open to trying different methods, trying new ideas, trying different equipment, and seeing how they work, and seeing what we like best and what works best, and try to get the most factual paranormal evidence that we can.
Yes. Have you got Gauss meters, the grey boxes that crackle?
We do not.
So this is a Gauss meter, which basically you turn it on and hold it down at the side, put it near something electrical, if I can hear that.
Okay.
So the closer it gets to something, the more it picks up on the electric. And so you sit that down, multiple if possible. Obviously, you have to baseline, make sure there's nothing activating it in that area. I tell you, when that, like the K2 that goes up to full lights, this goes and then turns into a squeal and then a screech. And it's just great because you don't even have to watch it. You just like hearing it.
Yeah.
Going, oh.
I was just going to say, is it similar to a REM pod? Because we just got 2 of those.
Yeah, we'll have 2 of those now.
I guess it is. I guess it's got the same kind of a zone as well. It's
the closer
usually...
the higher it does get on REM pod
too.
But both devices are cool. So where do you find you buy most of your equipment?
Nowadays, just Amazon, because I just feel that ghost sites really rip you off. Think about something you've experienced along your journey, and tell me about a paranormal experience each.
Well, mine's like my top is going to go back to the Weaversville Inn that we were talking about. The chain of events that happened in that short amount of time where Jordan's hair was being touched. We had that huge loud bang on the door, and 2 distinct female voices came on camera. That would be my top, just because of how the events played out and how distinct the voices were, and the fact that everyone heard the huge bang on the door, and there was no one else in the building, at the time. That's going to be one of my top moments that I replay in my head.
I guess mine would be at the Wooden Match, because I was so messed up after that episode. There was just a lot going on, and I felt like overwhelmed being there, and then having the pant leg pulled, and then having EVPs right after and stuff like that. And yeah, that one was probably the one that's probably going to stick with me for a while.
Oh, like that's tough for me because I'm like I've just been here saying like I want something, you know. I think one of probably the coolest, most unexplained experiences that I've ever had has been also with Justin and through Ghost Encounters. Way back early on, like I've known Justin forever. Way back early on, we did an investigation in Elmira, New York, at at what used to be a Civil War prison camp. And the camp had been demolished. There wasn't really anything out there. It was just like a big field with like this
small reservoir of water.
Yeah, just like a nasty divot full of water, like stagnant mosquitoes, just awful. And it was just me, Justin, and the other guy with the camera out there in this middle of nowhere town. And we're asking questions. We got the little voice recorder thing going, and like really not very much happened. Obviously, with the EVPs, nothing happened in the moment. But when Justin like went over all the EVPs from the investigation from the session, we got a really cool sound bite that there was no actual reason that it could have taken place, because it was the voice of a person out there in just this middle of nowhere, coming from nowhere, southern accent. This had been like a southern prison camp for people from from down in the south, and they said, "Hey Yank, hey Yank," like southern person acknowledging that they're up in the north, that we're northern people. Like very cool, totally unexplainable. That one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was very cool. Very cool.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to me. Great show, great podcast, great people.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for
Likewise,
listening, and thanks for having us on. It's been great, and hopefully we can get out to the UK sometime and do a collaboration investigation.
Yeah.
Or even like try that Ouija board thing.
Zoom
I'm
call.
down.
Maybe that could be a Halloween episode.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That would be great.